you doing? Homestead. If you have not met me yet, my name is Heather. Sorry the milker is a little bit loud, but I've got to process dairy today. I don't know if I'm going to get to all the dairy processing that I need to today, but I at least have to start it. But we're at the time of day where I have to milk, so I gotta do this first, which works, because I do need to set up a little bit more ice cream base, and I already have some yogurt straining, and the yogurt and the ice cream base is the same thing. And I'll show you how all that works. It doesn't take any kind of heating. It is amazing. The cheese that I've actually had set up for a couple of days now. I said cheese, and I know we talked about doing yogurt and ice cream base, but really all this is a chev cheese. And you can make a chev cheese into a lot of different products. If I was to just add salt to this, stir it up and stick it in the fridge, it's a chev. But we're going to be making this into yogurt because I need some of that, and this, as I mentioned, will be ice cream base. It's all the same setup. So I just milked this. As you saw, I did have ice packs in there, so it's a little bit cooler. But what I'm going to be using is a mesophilic culture. And mesophilic cultures thrive at a lower temperature. They will increase in numbers at a lower temperature. Now you can use the whey from a previous batch to culture a new batch. In my experience, that has varying level of results. I get different flavors while doing that, and I'm looking for a little bit more consistency. So what I buy is this cottage cheese culture. I actually don't know which culture it is, but it works really well, and we really like the flavor. You can use like an MA11 or something like that. So all I do is take a little bit on the end of a utensil here. This is probably about a 1/4 teaspoon, and add it in. That may even be too much. Stir that in, and this is not going to be enough to make it come together. I like my ice cream base and my yogurt to be a little bit more creamy than a traditional chev might be, and so I use actually 1 drop of animal rennet into a little bit of water to make this coagulate, and 1 drop really does do it. So this goes a really long way. Just gonna get this thoroughly mixed, and it's not gonna happen instantly because it's so little rennet and it has such a soft set. It does take a few hours. I tend to leave it overnight, but you can leave it a few days. It will get a little bit more strong, the flavor of your cheese, if you leave it. Just put the lid on this and set it to the side and let it do its thing. Okay, so it is a little bit dark in the kitchen right now. It is fly season, and I have found, there's still one over here, but I have found that if I have the lights on, they're much more apt to be around here, and if I shut the lights off, they go over towards the windows, and so I wind up with less issues that way. So this has been hanging for too long for my purposes, but that doesn't matter. I've been collecting the whey down here, and no critters flew into it, which is great, but I did have some whey saved as backup just in case. I have failed to save the whey before, and a fly flew into it, so I had to pitch the whey. But I still needed yogurt. What we're gonna do is dilute this Chev cheese with the whey in order to turn it back into something like yogurt. Well, when I had to throw that whey away, I replaced the whey with milk, and that yogurt wasn't good. It tasted like solidified milk and not like yogurt at all. It completely took away the cultured flavor, which was kind of bizarre to me. But anyway, I'm actually just going to add this cheese straight back into the whey, and I'll probably have to add more whey too to get the consistency that we like. Pretty ball of cheese down there. I have discovered that if I'm making something sweet or if I'm making something savory, it doesn't matter. The Chev cheese base needs to have salt. So yeah, I'm making yogurt or I'm making ice cream base. It needs salt. It does not taste right without it. Usually I do about a teaspoon, like a rounded teaspoon of salt per gallon of milk that I had used to make the cheese. Okay, now all I'm gonna do is blitz this up with an immersion blender. I will need to add a little bit of liquid again to get the consistency of yogurt that I like, but that's one of the cool things about this method of making yogurt is you can adjust it to your preferences. I guess you can probably do that even if you're making yogurt in the traditional way. There are yogurt strainers out there that do the same thing that I just did with the butter muslin. And if you needed to, you could always add whey back to that as well. I'm gonna sweeten this with honey. Beautiful flavor. Obviously it's still warm, and this will thicken up a little bit in the fridge. There you go. It's about 6.5 cups worth of yogurt. In my family, we have a 6-person family. We will probably go through this all at once tomorrow. Sometimes I get more and sometimes I get less. Honestly, it matters a lot who I have in milk. The cheese yield that you get out of a dairy goat greatly depends on their genetics, and I am working on getting very cheesy genetics in my herd. A lot of the bucks that I have 2 high casein genes that they can pass on to their daughters. They'll pass one on and they get another one from their dam. I sold Little Miss, and when I sold Little Miss, I noticed that our yields went way down. Little Miss is mostly Nigerian dwarf, and Feral is her sire. Feral does pass on heavy cheese yields. I have not tested my Elpis line for their casein content, but I'm guessing that it's a little bit lower. That's okay. This will still feed us, and again, it's going to thicken up as it sits. Hello, it is the next day. I knew I wasn't going to have time to deal with the rest of the milk yesterday. What I'm doing today is a little bit time consuming. I'm going to be making butter as well as making cheese. Making butter is not the time consuming part, but cheese can be. I am going to be making a queso fresco, which is a little bit less involved and does take a little bit less time than aged cheeses. Now this milk is older. Right now, today is June 6th, and the oldest milk I have here is from April 15th. And the reason that I let this sit is twofold. It will culture as it sits. All of this milk is still raw. And we're working with goat's milk here, as you saw in the beginning of the vlog. And goat's milk does separate over time, but it does take some time. It doesn't take 6 weeks. It actually happens usually in about 10 days. You can start to see that separation. This milk here is about a month old, and I think you're going to be able to see the separation here. The cream rises to the top, and there's never as a complete separation of the cream and milk as with something like cow's milk, but this is plenty to make butter with. I do have a cream separator, and I do use it from time to time. It does involve a lot of dishes, and this is actually becoming my preference. Not hauling out the cream separator, not having to heat the milk in order to use the cream separator, and then to clean all of those components afterward. You get a lot of cream out of the milk by doing that, but it's not necessarily worth the hassle to me. And you don't need a cream separator to get cream off of goat's milk. See here, this is the milk that's a month old. I'm making sure that I don't have anything growing on the top. Sometimes you can get little pink fuzzies growing on top. And if I see that, I do not keep the milk or the cream. That will go in the compost. I bought this cute little ladle to go in my jars. And I'm just gonna be scooping the cream off of the top. I have found a lot of cream sticks to the bottom of the ladle, so I like to try and save that as well. Me messing with this jar is gonna combine some of that cream back in with the milk, so I'm not gonna get everything off of it, but I will get a lot. The first bits of cream are the thickest, and then the cream gets a little bit thinner. And what I'm looking for as I'm dipping the cream off is the cream does visually look different than the milk. It's visually thinner, it is a lighter color, it's almost translucent looking, the milk is, versus the cream. And so as I'm looking down in the jar and letting the cream fill the ladle, if I'm starting to see streaks of milk enter my ladle, that's when I'm gonna stop. Oh, and I actually don't smell any kind of souring. Our milk lasts a really long time. Our refrigerators are quite cold. Actually, some of this milk is frozen from being in the back of the fridge, and the 2 cabbages that I had stored in that same refrigerator are frozen as well. So I was gonna be making coleslaw with those, but I think I have to shift what I'm gonna be doing with those, because I don't think canned coleslaw is gonna work out very well with frozen cabbage. Sometimes it's easier for me to shut off my countertop lights when I'm trying to see the cream line, so I may end up doing that. I'm hoping that this comes up on camera, but can you see those lighter or almost clear swirls in the cream? That's the milk coming through. See that? I really hope that came up on camera. That clearish, that's milk. So I'm gonna stop here. A little bit of milk in the cream isn't gonna matter, but we want mostly cream for making butter. So out of that 1/2 gallon of milk, I got about 1.5 cups of cream. Not bad. I will set this to the side. This is what I'm gonna make our cheese with. There, 1 quart down. Tastes great. I'm not gonna put that cream in the fridge. My little butter churner needs the cream to be at about room temp, so I'm gonna leave it out. And obviously I've left the skim milk out as well. That's also fine, because we will be heating the milk to make the cheese. I do get asked pretty frequently whether leaving my milk on the counter like this, or even heating up the milk in order to make cheese, if that makes my milk taste goaty, and it doesn't. Our milk has never really tasted particularly goaty, except when I have had animals that were low on vitamin B. That can be very horrific. If your milk is going off within a day or 2 in the fridge, number 1, make sure that you're milking in a clean manner. You don't necessarily need everything to be super sterile, but things should be clean. And then the second thing I would look at is your refrigerator. Is it keeping temp? Our milk fridges, I keep them as cold as I can. Actually, my cheese fridge in here has a little thermometer on it, and it's set to 36. That's not my aging temp. That's just what I want it to stabilize the cheeses at and to keep them for a long term. But then after that, the flavor of the milk can really depend on what the goat is eating, as well as their mineral balance and vitamin balance. The biggest thing that I have found that really improves the milk and keeps the milk for a really long time, like you're seeing here, is keeping the cobalt block out in the barn. It is a blue block, and the goats really like it. It makes their hair really shiny, and their milk lasts a very long time and has a great flavor for a very long time. There's something about cobalt inside their rumen that helps them, or the bacteria in their gut, produce vitamin B. And there's something with that really helps the rest of their system work as ideally as possible. Minerals are very important for goats. I know everyone says that, but it is true. This is the jar that's frozen. I'm just gonna set this to the side and I'll put this whole thing in the cheese. Looks good besides the ice crystals. Here's one that I'm not keeping. This one looked okay from the outside, but that is what you don't want to see. It's got a funny yellowy color. There's a little bit of pink growing in there. And I'm getting a sour, rancid smell. Not a good sour like sour cream, but something like I definitely don't want to eat it. So this is gonna go outside. This could have been, like the jar was not as clean as it could have been when I filled it up, or something was off with the milking process, so we're not keeping this. So we're probably working with about 4.5 gallons of milk for this cheese, mostly skim milk. It's not perfectly skim, but we did skim off a lot of the fat. So normally I will get about 1 pound of cheese per gallon of milk when I'm making cheese. I'm gonna get less than that because I've taken out the fats and things, and that does contribute a lot to the end product. But we should see, I'd say about a 3-pound wheel of skim milk cheese. 4.5 gallon of 4 to 5 week old milk, no culture. You can culture old milk. I would almost say that it's probably preferred to add good culture or good bacteria to old milk just in case, because again, you don't want the bad bacteria that is present in all milk to get an upper hand in your product. So putting in good bacteria, good culture, helps throw the balance in the favor of the good bacteria. Queso fresco is cultured at a lower temperature, so you want to use a mesophilic culture. This is MA11. I'm not going to add the culture until the milk is heated up to 90 degrees. That is the temperature that those cultures really do well at. So in the name of multitasking, there's a lot of dishes no matter what. When it comes to dairy, while this is heating is a good time to do the dishes. This doesn't have to be stirred constantly. Look, there's still quite a lot of cream in there, but you do want to keep it moving so that it heats thoroughly. I find that goat's milk tends to scald a lot less readily than cow's milk. There might be a little bit less sugar in goat's milk, I'm not really sure, and it may just depend on the animal as well. All right, we're up to 90 degrees in here, and you are going to see a few little like fat globules kind of rolling around in there. That's normal. A lot of times when I use milk that's been previously frozen, I see that. So I've got a teaspoon of the MA11 or other type of mesophilic culture. And then instead of the rennet that I used yesterday, which was vegetable rennet, I know I said animal rennet, this is microbial rennet. It really doesn't necessarily matter what type of rennet you're using to coagulate your milk, but the reason that I use vegetable rennet in my yogurt is because it's a little bit less active, and so I get a softer set with the vegetable rennet, which is what I'm looking for in my yogurt. For something like this, I do want a little bit more of a firm set. This happens to be microbial rennet, but I have used animal rennet before and gotten very good results. So with this, I need more than a drop. I need actually about 3/4 of a teaspoon of rennet, and I am going to dilute it in water. I have actually heated up to 93. I shut the burner off, but still, sometimes sitting on the burner will make the temperature rise. So I'm going to take this off, mix that culture into the milk, and then sometimes you will see recipes that tell you to wait some time for the milk to culture before you add the rennet. I recently learned that, especially with raw milk, you don't have to wait to add the rennet. You can cut that wait time totally out. Here's our rennet and water mixture. This will set faster than the yogurt, so I want to make sure that I get this thoroughly mixed within about 20 seconds. Then I want to leave this alone. I have left this for as little as 45 minutes before, and I've left it for as long as 3 hours before. The cheese is very, very forgiving, and so try not to worry too much about it. I do want it covered while we're waiting for things to set. Now over here, I have our cream that we set out, and I'm using this to temp it. Right now it's at 54. So it does need to warm up just a little bit before we can pull out the butter churn. So I guess I'll do the dishes. At the moment, my cream is only at 60 degrees. Ideally it should be about 65, 66 degrees, but I've run out of patience. So we're going to go ahead and let it rip. In videos past, you guys have seen me make butter using my KitchenAid mixer. That does still work fine, but this butter churn was sent to me by a subscriber. Thank you so much, Miss Lori. This is really a game changer. Basically all it is a paint mixer on a motor. I think this is called the Butter Miser or Butter Meister, something like that. And it works so well and contains less. Being that this is a 1 gallon jar, I can only fill it halfway, so the 2 quarts that we got are perfect. It does tend to jump around the counter just a little bit, so I've got this silicone mat to help me hold it still. Okay, got it plugged in. I'm gonna turn it on. See how it kind of moves? Gotta hold it still. Sometimes the top will jiggle off just a little bit. So as it's churning, I just make sure that the lid is still secure. Alright, it's been about 6 minutes, and I've noticed that we're starting to thicken up pretty good in there. The cream is going to go through a few different stages before it becomes butter. It does become whipped cream, and then sometimes it tends to look like it's loosened up a little bit before it actually breaks into butter. I'll try to show you those different stages as it happens, but we're starting to get thicker like a whipped cream now. Much thicker now. Still going, but see where there's no more hole in the middle? At this point, I've been standing here for about 11 minutes. For all I know, this process could go faster with the cream a little bit warmer. It's also not as bouncy at this point. Interesting to note. One of the things with this versus the KitchenAid is I'm not having to like stop the KitchenAid in order to scrape down the sides to make sure everything is whipping up evenly. This just does it all inside, which is really nice. Starting to kind of suck the cream back down in, so we're loosening up a little bit more now. See it at the bottom? Just moving a little bit more freely. There's butter and buttermilk down there, and the top part of the cream just has to mix in. And then we're good. There we go. Spinning freely again, and there's chunks of butter. So I'll stop it at this point. You can kind of see the color change too. The buttermilk is a little bit more creamy colored. I actually stopped washing my butter quite a bit ago. I find that goat's milk butter is softer than cow's milk butter. It's not as waxy, and it doesn't do as well if you try to wash it like you would cow's milk butter, at least not in my experience. So what I've got here is just some damp butter muslin, and I'm gonna hang it just like I would a cheese. Whoop. Make a mess or it doesn't count. This butter is still a little bit cold, which is good because you can squeeze it a little more and it's not just gonna seep out of the sides of the cloth or the weave of the cloth. There is a tool to take off the paddle from the motor. I don't know where it went, but this is very easy to clean. What we have down here now is buttermilk. It's cultured buttermilk because our cream that we started with was cultured. If you didn't have cultured cream, you could always leave this out on the counter and then you would have cultured buttermilk, which to me tastes a lot better than regular buttermilk. Beautiful. Easily one of the most refreshing things besides basil tea. This is a really close second. Yes, it came from older milk. It tastes nothing like a goat hoof. If you know, you know. Okay, now to speed up the process just a little bit, I like to take a towel and use it to help me squeeze out the buttermilk. I have used things like butter paddles before, and those are fine and they work well, but so does this. Here is our wonderful disc of butter. Lovely. And like all things dairy, in my opinion, it definitely needs salt. You can scrape off excess butter. And what I do before I stick this butter muslin in the laundry is I will hand wash this in the sink with soap and get a lot of this butter out before I go ahead and try to stick this in my washer. And just like with what we put together yesterday, I think I'm going to add about a teaspoon of salt to this. But go slow, taste it. You can always add more later. Some buttermilk may come out of the butter as you're mixing in the salt. That's fine, you can just dump it out, but it will be salty and less refreshing. See, it's not much that comes out, but some does. Here's that same butter muslin, I just wrung it out in the sink. Now we have a salted disc of butter. I'm gonna store it in these little plastic containers here. Sorry, my camera died, but this is what we got out of that milk. I'm gonna weigh it, I think, unless my battery is dead. If the battery is dead, I won't weigh it. But in general, I get about 2 sticks of butter worth per one of these containers. So we should have about 1.25 pounds. It's gone. We might not be able to weigh our cheese either, but we'll still be able to see it. At this point, I think it's been about 1.5 hours that the cheese has been sitting here. It is still temping at 90 degrees, which is great. A curd mass like this really will maintain its own heat pretty well. Even if we had lost a couple of degrees, it's not a big deal. And I can tell we've got a good curd set because I can see that the cheese itself is separating from the side of the pot. You can really see it here too. So that's good. And this particular cheese has the curd cut pretty small. So we're gonna use a whisk to achieve that. All right, so the goal is to get the curd cooked up to 95 degrees within about 1/2 hour. I have washed my arm and doused it in vinegar, and I am going to use it to stir the whole time. All right, so I actually do still have about 11 minutes left to stir, but because I've been making cheese a little while, I can feel that these curds are ready. And I'm gonna try to get this across on camera so that you can see what I mean. In general, you can tell that the curds are ready to press when you can pick up, a handful of them, give it a squeeze. The curds themselves are not coming through my fingers, and they're sticking together when I let go, but then they can easily be crumbled back apart. This is a cooked curd. You can choose to cook curd longer than this. It's just gonna dry them out more, so the cheese will be a little bit more crumbly, and that might be what you're going for. It's not necessarily what I'm going for, so I'm gonna stop it here and just allow this curd to all settle to the bottom. I'm gonna pour out the extra whey, and then we'll salt it and get it molded. Yes, there's a whole bunch of things you can do with whey. I know. So I've got most of it poured out. There is still a little bit of whey in there, and there's still a little bit of whey left in the curd. We're gonna salt it as it is right now. I'm gonna do about 1/4 cup of salt. Yes, that sounds like a lot, but when we press this, a lot of the salt is going to come out in the whey and won't oversalt the cheese. That's what it looks like right now. I'm gonna let this sit in here with the lid on for about 20 minutes and let this salty whey kind of soak into the curd, and then we'll go ahead and get it molded. This is a good time to taste test though. So good, it's amazing what you can make with almost 2-month-old milk. Oops, I forgot to hit the record button. But the cheese mold is full now. It's a little bit later now. You can probably tell that the sun is starting to go down. We had some friends stop by earlier, so I didn't get to show the whole cheese making process, but I do have a comprehensive video on how to make the queso fresco, and I also put together the ice cream base. I have a video on that too, and I made some Velveeta, and I have a video on that too. So don't worry if I didn't film it today. I do have videos that you can cross-reference for those projects. It was a very dairy day, which was good. I needed to get it done. Now I am about to unmold the cheese and get it put away. Queso fresco can be eaten as early as really the day that it's made. It's a little bit squeaky the first day, but the second day it really does mellow out quite a lot and is very, very nice. What I am going to do though is get it cut up into quarters so that we can pull it out of the fridge as needed, and we're not trying to cut off like the one big block for a couple of weeks. This cheese, though, it doesn't have to age at all, and so you can just stick it in the regular refrigerator, which is one of the reasons that I wish I had started with it. It seems like just a really simple first cheese, and for some reason that wasn't my first cheese. Here it is. It's been pressing for about 5 hours. I've flipped it and increased the pressure with each flip. And it's beautiful. It smells lovely. It wasn't the straightest cut, but that's all right. A little peek inside. Too late. Nope, it's all packed up. I really thought I'd be able to catch Margie by myself. I don't know why. I need help. Because you're a butt. Margie actually came from an abuse situation. And so she still carries some of that with her, even though she knows I'm not gonna hurt her. If she senses anything strange, anything out of the ordinary, she is not going to participate. I need to grab her because she is now officially 30 days post her AI breeding. I think it's actually 31 days today. So she's solidly 30 days bred, if she is bred. And I want to draw blood just to make sure that she took. I was going to draw blood on all of the 3 of the does that were bred 30 days ago. But really, I've never had a problem with my does settling with live cover, except for one fluke animal that I used to have a while ago. Normally, our live cover breedings work just fine. So Gale and Helicity, I am just going to leave them untested and assume that they are bred, but we really want to make sure Margie is bred. Can I have assistance catching Margie, please? Yeah. Thank you. All right, we've got our girl, and I want her to work quickly so I don't stress her out. But I am going to be going into this jugular right here and draw a little bit of blood. And if you do need a step-by-step on blood draws, I do have a video on that. I'm gonna leave it below. I've got at least 2 of them. What I have here are like double-pointed needles, a vacutainer, and this little housing that is going to hold the needle for me. What I'm gonna do is stick her with this and then pop this vacutainer in here. This is holding a vacuum right now, but when I pierce it with the needle, that vacuum is going to draw blood into the tube. It's really slick. I'm trying to show you what I'm doing here, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to get the best angle. Sometimes it helps to shave the area, and I may do that if I can't get it. Go. Got it. That's all I need, mama. And contrary to popular belief, they do not just bleed out when you pierce their jugular. Go. I can send this off, get it tested, and then we'll know. I am pretty confident that Margie is in fact bred. I have had Margie for a long time, and I feel like I know her at this point. Margie is polyestrous, and I have not noticed her coming into any kind of heat. And a lot of times Margie will poke out with her pregnancies pretty early on, and I'm seeing her poking out right here. This doesn't mean that she's got a whole bunch of babies on board, but she's an older doe. I have had a lot of babies, and I know that when I'm pregnant, I stick out way earlier than I did with like my first baby. And I think that's just what's going on with her. So I have high hopes that she is bred, but this will confirm officially. Thank you, ma'am. I should have given her a cookie. All right, kitchen explosion just a little bit. But 'tis this time of year for that. I did manage to get some of the Kentucky Wonder pole beans harvested, and the first harvest was enough to do a tiny bit of canning, which is not normal for me. Usually the trickle harvest, I can barely add like a handful of beans to like something else, like summer squash or carrots or something else. But I actually am getting enough from the garden at this point where I'm starting to need to do my little tiny bits of preserving. So that was my pressure canner, my electric pressure canner that I just moved, and I managed to get some carrots from the garden and some green beans canning in the same batch. I'm actually in the middle of trying to figure out dinner. I wanted to do some kind of dish with broccoli because I think I finally have harvested the last bit of broccoli that we're gonna have until fall time, and I wanted to do like an Asian rabbit dish, kind of like a chicken and broccoli except for rabbit and broccoli. And I have some rabbit in here from 2025. I had separated it out into its different parts, so this was a whole bunch of legs, but I have actually been really enjoying boneless rabbit. I have a lot of what I've called, or what has been called, belly rolls put away, and that's where you kind of remove the loin with the belly flap and you roll it up. It's kind of like a chicken breast. And so that's been great, but I'm highly interested in deboning some of these legs and seeing how we like that. I think it was about 20 rabbits that my husband, daughter, and I processed the other day. And so those I would actually like to maybe debone the entire rabbit and put them away completely boneless. That's gonna be a next week project though, for sure.
Hello.
Hey, where's the processing bag with the good knives?
It should be on the shelf, the top shelf by the side door.
Had to call my husband because I do a much better job when I have my favorite knife. This is not sponsored. This is a Mora knife. We bought these forever ago. I've got a couple different ones, a couple different sizes for processing the animals, but I also really like it for things like this. So I was actually watching a couple different videos about how to take the bone out of the thigh, and it seems pretty straightforward. I've actually never done this on rabbits before. I have done plenty of deboning on things like goats. Usually it's all about just tracing the bone and getting the meat off that way. There's a little bit of like a kneecap right where you'd expect it to be on a rabbit. Goats have this too, and it's definitely worth getting out. Surprise bones are one of people's least favorite things about rabbit meat. There we go. Didn't take long at all. I do need to rinse it off a little bit. Now, there's a deboned rabbit leg. Of course, we'll put this in the bone broth bag. bag of cheese. One thing that I would like to try, and I'll have to let you guys know if it works out, is I would like to try to make the Velveeta cheese that I've been making on the stove with this curd. This curd is so much easier to put together and takes far fewer dishes. And so yeah, I'm gonna be experimenting with a little bit of this, but it's also going to be cream cheese and probably some more yogurt and ice cream. I picked up about 32 pounds of cherries from our local Amish store. Now, probably about 7 pounds of them were waste because the cherries were starting to get a little bit old, so I knew I had to process them quickly. I got 9 quarts of cherry pie filling put together, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and a half pints of jam. And so I think that that is pretty good. Each box, which was 16 pounds, cost me $20. I probably have about $10 worth of sugar in here because we do buy organic sugar. And this morning I also did pick and can some more green beans. So very excited to say that we are solidly into green bean season. Anywho, I know this vlog is plenty long enough. We will not hear about Margie's pregnancy test results until next week. I am fingers crossed that we hear on Wednesday. I think that's the earliest report date that we could have. So stay tuned for that. I'm really excited.